Welcome to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast with Thomas Miller. Are you tired of your tweens, teens, and young adults' negative behaviors and poor choices holding you emotionally hostage, controlling your family, and ruling your life? Do you feel like you're riding an emotional roller coaster every time you walk into your house? If you answered yes, then you're in the right place. This podcast is a community for courageous parents just like you who come here to gain effective tools, skills, and learn concrete action steps that they can take to be more confident, calmer, and more empowered while parenting and changing their tween, teen, or young adult's life and improving their family's future. Welcome to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast with your host, Thomas Miller. Today is part 2 of our episode on performance anxiety. More specifically, how to help your kids manage performance anxiety. So what we covered last episode was basically how do we shift the focus and the narrative and the conversation in our home with our kids away from outcomes and more toward effort. We want them to be focused on identifying with their effort or their dedication or their level of work, striving, toiling, what have you, versus solely the outcome. Because if they're solely outcome fixated or outcome focused, I hate to say it, folks, but they ain't gonna make it. And so today we're gonna get into how do we really help our kids in the moment when that anxiety is spiking, when that anticipatory anxiety shows up, right? How do we help them stay cool, stay regulated, move through it, and then begin to actually experience neuronally in terms of their brain, emotionally, physiologically, that this experience of failing or potentially failing or making a mistake is in fact okay. Again, we are the marketing team now for our kids, right? We're the chief marketing officers on mistakes and failure. We want to change a whole new ad campaign in our kids' brains around that. And if we have been guilty, which I know I definitely have in terms of certain aspects of my kids' performance and falling into, or lazily, I should say, falling into some default settings about looking at grades or looking at their performance on and off the soccer pitch as a marker or metric for their value, we have to change that, right? And so if there's some toothpaste out of the tube, let's accept it, move on, and focus on what's our next right thing. So one of the things that I do as a coach, I coach soccer at a very high level. Of course, I'm a parenting coach and a therapist. But one of the things that I do is while I'm stretching the kids, while warming the kids up, right, I'll do some basic grounding skills, right? I know that they're a bit keyed up. I know that they're having a quasi, not crazy, but quasi fight or flight. Some kids, it might be more crazy on the fight or flight side. Their amygdalas might really be firing. And they might be viewing this game and the whistle that's about to blow as a threat, right, to their livelihood. And so it's as simple as while, we're stretching, I'll say, hey, what are 5 things that you guys see that are square? Or what are 4 things that are pink, right? Let's go around, identify 4 things that are pink. Take a breath in between each of those objects or those colors. One thing I do all the time is feet, butts, heads, which is like if someone's sitting, right? How do your feet feel on the floor? How does your butt feel in the seat? How does your head feel, right? That's an easy one to do on the way to the game, on the way to the dance recital, on the way to the interview for the job, or even to go to the sleepover. Let's not forget too that a lot of my clients, a lot of the parents I coach, their kiddos have social anxiety. Again, that's what it used to be called. And then DSM-5, it's called social phobia. And I said this in the last episode, but I'll say it again. Social phobia does not mean your kid is literally afraid of kids or people. It doesn't mean that they actually don't have fantastic social skills. They probably do. Someone can have social phobia and have fantastic social competencies. This has nothing to do with potentially being on the spectrum and having a lack of social emotional reciprocity. This just has to do with someone is afraid of being negatively evaluated, of someone is afraid of not performing at their best, right? And embarrassing themselves. Hence, they want to avoid that situation that has an evaluative nature. And believe it or not, asking someone out has an evaluative nature. Getting in front of the class has an evaluative nature. Job interviews has an evaluative nature. A sleepover, a party for some kids has an evaluative nature. So that's why they recede into the ether or the background, right? Or sometimes if they have ADHD, right? When their ADHD and anxiety get together, right? Which are really funny bedfellows, right? And unfortunately don't work out that well, particularly if your kid has hyperactivity. Their anxiety is going to take their executive functioning offline. Their PFC, as in prefrontal cortex, is already going to be diminished because they're a teen or a tween or a young adult. It's not a fully formed one. But if that anxiety and amygdala is kicking in, right, and they got that whole limbic system going in overdrive, they're not going to make great decisions. And so they might be impulsive. So your kid might be a red herring in a way, or be a social leper in terms of their impulsivity or hyperactivity, or they might be going the other extreme where they're going turtle, going into their shell, right? Really trying to avoid and slinking off into the ether. So we can do a lot, right? We first have to notice what's going on for our kids. Let's make an observation, something super neutral and simple, like, hey, like, it looks like you're a little anxious, or like, do you realize you got really quiet? Or have you noticed that you're talking fast? Or it seems like, you're a little nervous or you're a little worried. Is that true? Right? Check in, right? We can take that temperature. So again, tons of grounding skills. You can find any of these online. You can certainly reach out to me. There's tons of grounding skills that I talk about, of course, in this podcast as well as in the newsletter. Please don't forget to sign up. You can find out how to do that in the description of this show. As well as, of course, if you became a part of the Four Peaks Parent Program, I would give you a bazillion tools in the third peak, particularly where it's called Upgrading Your Toolkit, where we really give parents that opportunity to create a co-regulated space, right? It really helps you learn how to hold space for your kids to experience whatever their experience, and step away and have an objective stance versus a dysregulated stance where we're going through it, jumping in the toilet bowl, tying a rope to ourselves and them, being tethered to their experience, and then wondering why we're not able to bring value. Okay? So don't forget, super simple, 5 things touching your body, right? 4 things that are blue. Hey, let's breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4, breathe out for 4. Let's breathe in for 6 seconds or 5 and breathe out for 7 or 8, right? Something as simple as what's 3 things you see, 2 things that you touch, close your eyes, 1 thing you hear. I do this, like I said, a lot in warm-ups prior to the game. I do this with my kids on the way to certain things, right? While they're in the car. What does the seatbelt feel like on your chest, right? What does your jacket feel like? Or what do your shoes feel like? Are they loose? Are they tight? Anything. How many, again, trucks can we find? Let's take a breath in between. All of these tools are tools that they're going to keep with them in their toolkit, and it's going to bring them down. So one of the things we have to be real with, people, we can't expect our kids to shift from an outcome to an effort, perspective, or mentality if we're not going to do it. And why don't we do it? Let's be honest, right? We as parents struggle to find the balance between supporting, helping, versus stepping back because we're nervous, right? We're scared they're going to fail. We immediately go toward worst case scenarios. We don't, want to see them miss out in life, quote unquote, miss out in life. So self-awareness is so important because every time we step in, every time we do too much, it robs our kids of their own grit and resiliency. I would assume we all know the story of the chrysalis. I'll make it quick, right? But the butterfly, right, is fighting its way out of the cocoon, right? And as it's fighting its way out of the cocoon, it literally, that fluid that is built up in its wings gets spread out through its wings so that it can obviously fly. And so that struggle of it writhing and uncomfortably pushing through the obstacles is what allows it to achieve peak performance. And imagine if we as parents went over there and just flew too low, so to speak, and went in there and just like kind of, forced open a hole to make it an easier journey for that butterfly. That butterfly would not be able to fly. And unwittingly, so many parents that I coach have done this. They have, in their effort to help their kids, as they would put it, quote unquote, help their kids have an easier go of it or be more successful or not experience pain, they have flown so low or removed obstacles and challenges that otherwise would have allowed their children to internalize and generalize those gains into a more sustainable, resilient growth mindset culture. So let's be really mindful of that. One thing that we just need to do, let's just start with, is normalize mistakes. Let's just normalize mistakes in our house. Okay, done. Okay. Second thing, you could share your own mistakes and failures. You don't have to share every little thing. Like, you don't need to be like, back in college, they don't need to hear about all those things, mom or dad. But, that's another conversation. I've definitely shared things with my kids because they've asked me some pointed questions about, have I done this or have I done that? And that's okay, as long as you're framing it in a way of, here's what I learned from that, right? Let's praise them when they display courage. And courage could be, again, shooting your shot, whether that's literally shooting your shot in a basketball game as opposed to passing it, or asking a guy or girl or whoever out, or going to the dance, or saying yes to the sleepover. I work with this family right now who the kid has extreme anxiety and tons of separation anxiety. And so we're fostering ways to promote this kid's resiliency by giving him little small exposures of the stimulus that he believes makes him sick or makes things hard, which is separating from his mother and father. But if they don't do that, right, they're never going to let him inoculate himself against that stressor or that trigger. And through that inoculation process, he's becoming stronger and becoming more resilient. So the other thing that's super cool, I just did this last week in the group, one of the Four Peaks parents groups. I had the parents do a mistake journal with their kids. And I pulled this out of what. I had never done it before. And it was kind of cool. I had the parents do it themselves, but also do it with their kids. Let's do a journal of all our mistakes this week, right? And what did we learn from those mistakes? What went wrong? And diagnose and dissect what went wrong and what can we do next time? The feedback was great because all the parents were like, oh my God, like not only did it put my kid and I at the same level, we were now aligned around looking at mistakes from a positive lens versus a negative lens. This is such a huge concept that I drive home all the time with parents that I'm trying to help create a fail-forward culture, is failure is not the end. Let me say that again, people. Failure is not the end. Okay? It's a beginning. And when we fail, we often learn more than when we succeed. Let's be real. There's tons of soccer teams I've coached in the past that have been incredibly successful, and they have not played the best soccer. So this team that I've been coaching now for 4 years, since these kids were literally 8 years old, I've been coaching these kids. We play out of the back. I won't get too in the weeds here, people, on soccer. But playing out of the back means the keeper, the goalie, is rolling the ball to that defender's foot, which means the other team is pressing this little kid, little bumpkin, little Johnny, who's 8. But guess what? You know how many goals I have watched my defenders create for the other team because they made a bad pass and they put a kid through on goal, and then the kid basically was on a one-on-one with our keeper. I refuse to just let our keeper punt the ball. Of course, punting can sometimes be okay. Again, I'm not going to get too in the weeds here on soccer, but I have instilled in these kids this fail-forward mindset that we're going to fail now so we win later on. My team is a great team, and we play beautiful soccer now, and we also create results. But more importantly, we netted out a process, right, that has been now built in stone. And I've told the parents very clearly, if you don't buy in to we're going to lose early, right? We're going to fail early. We're going to fail big. We're going to fail often so we can win later on. You can go to another team. And there's some parents that wanted those instant results, and they're thankfully no longer a part of the system or the culture of our team. And guess what? The parents who I do get to coach are amazing because they all buy in. They all understand the bigger picture, the ROI. So those are important things that we have to immediately shift about ourselves. Because if we're not viewing failure as a stepping stone, how the hell can we expect our kids to, right? So let's help our kids see failure as a vehicle for grit and resiliency. And we have to let go of our fixation on the outcome. I know it's scary. I know it's hard. I know you're nervous. But again, letting go of the outcome for your kids is not abandonment, people. I have so many parents who they can't step away. Well, and they say things like, what if, which is my fave. What if blah, blah, blah happens? What if da, da, da happens? Well, if somebody has OCD, which I've treated, oh my God, hundreds of kids with OCD and coach parents on how to stop reassuring their kids. OCD as an intrusive, negative, anxiety-provoking thought will always begin with a what if. And we can never answer that what if because it's out in the future and it's always ominous. So we have to shift away from what if on a negative landscape and make it what if, right? They learn from that mistake. What if they are okay with it? What if they become emotionally resilient or unflappable, right? We want to step away from carrying all the weight of our kids' challenges. And let's start trusting the process so that it can be a win-win, right, for your child and you, right? And so the more we can normalize, right, our own fears, their worries, then we can talk about it, right? We can, to name it and express it is to basically claim it, right? So we don't have to make sure they don't fail, of course, nor do we have to make sure they don't feel uncomfortable, right? So let's start with ourselves. Let's manage our own fears and anxiety, people, today, right? Let's stop projecting all over our kids, right? We want gritty kids, yet we're seldom willing to step back and do what we need to do, right? We can't be, so fixated on the outcome based on trying to avoid our kids' disappointment or these fears that they're going to be left behind, right? I know it's a biological desire to protect our kids. I know, trust me, I've mother cubbed up, not mother cubbed up. I've been the mother bear and protected my cubs in many a moment, and that's needed. Don't get me wrong. But again, if you can trust me and trust this process, in the end, right, we're going to have gritty, resilient kids. And I know we come from this crazy vanity metrics world of Instagram and, oh my God, TikTok and everything. And I know there's some Pinterest mom in your neighborhood who looks awesome and she's got Lululemon pants on and she's got 6-pack abs and da-da-da, and everyone's perfect. But that's not you. You're only competing against you. Let's beat you of last month or last year, right? So again, stop worrying about someone judging you that you're not a good parent. If our kids are failing, right? That's a shallow reason to hold on to trying to control and navigate and contrive outcomes for our kids. So if our identity is tied to our kids' results, how the hell do we expect our kids to make a shift and change their identity from outcomes or results to effort? I get it. You love your kids. I get it. Your anxiety and or fears is driving you towards control. And that's the major reason you're attempting to manage or control, right, the outcome. But we have to let go because we are the leaders and leaders create more leaders. So please, please, please take from this podcast that there is a need for us to immediately shift toward effort, catching our kids being good, normalizing mistakes, utilizing techniques like mistake journals. Yes, do tons of preparation prior to that dance thing, that interview. Yeah, do role plays before the interview. Do role plays before they ask someone out. Do some visualization about the game-winning experience or shot. Use these grounding skills I talked about. Practice, trial and error. But let's start testing, right? And see our kids prove to us how resilient they are. Sleepovers, athletic performances. We can walk alongside them. We can watch them internalize and generalize. And guess what? When they win, it's going to be their freaking win. And they're going to feel so good because it was born out of a process of efforting, toiling, trying again, trial and error, failing. Okay. Hey, take with you the courage from me, lend it to your kids, and your kids are going to be awesome. And the process is going to yield the outcome. Take care of the process, and the outcomes will come. I appreciate y'all. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter in the description. Have an amazing day. Be good. Hey everyone, Thomas here. First off, it means the world to me that you took the time to listen to my podcast. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Also, if you want to receive the latest podcast updates, as well as expert parenting tips and practical strategies for navigating your tween, teen, or young adults challenges directly to your inbox, then sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description. And most importantly, if you're tired of feeling overwhelmed, stuck, stressed, and are losing sleep because you're constantly worried about your tween, teen, or young adult, your first step is to realize that you still have a choice and can do something about it. I'm ready to help you take action and create the results you desire today. Just go to 4peaksparents.com and book a free strategy call. Let's do this. Last thing, while you were listening to this show, who was the one person that you thought could really benefit from hearing it? Please share it with them.